Thank you very much for that. That's a tall order. It has been a long day, very nuanced discussion. I'm not 100% sure that we managed to develop a grand strategy towards the two-state solution. But I think that this discussion we have had here is an important input in that very necessary and I think very important work which is subsumed under that title. I will try to be very brief because I will just tell you what 4 or 5 key messages I take away from this conference today. They are possibly not shared by all of you. We are all selective in what we are picking up. And some of the positions that were explained here at the conference cannot be reconciled. So there are some real differences also in views. And I hope to be able to reflect some of them. The first thing I take away is that there is no alternative to a two-state solution. I think that has been amply demonstrated by the 2 alternatives that are theoretically available. The one-state solution and a continuation of conflict management as we have seen for far too many years already. The first option will defy the very idea of a democratic and Jewish state, and I just don't think that there will be a majority either on the Israeli side or on the Palestinian side that would opt for that solution. Prolongation of conflict management, as we have seen for years, will just result in additional violence, humiliation, and suffering on a daily basis. Every experience, all experience shows that the violence, the cycle of violence will recur time and again. There will be periods where it subsides, but then it will pick up again, and that cannot, I think, be a solution to anyone. The second point, there is no other solution than a two-state solution. The second point I want to make is that there is a real issue around incentives, reciprocity, call it what you want. This is, for better or worse, a region of bargaining, of souk bargaining, and of nothing for nothing and something for something. And the problem here is that the cards are not equally shared. The Israelis will need to give some concessions. They're the ones who have the chips on the hand, and they will have to throw some of the chips off the hand. And the question is legitimate. What do we get for it? Now, some of the things that you want are things that the Palestinians, because of the situation they find themselves in, and the state structure, or very weak state structure, rather, that they have built, are really not able to deliver, including stop for incitement, including a total stop for violence, and so on and so forth. These are the things that Israelis are legitimately asking, but things that I think in the nature of things are difficult to guarantee delivery of from the Palestinian side. And that's the reason why there needs to be, first of all, security guarantees, even security guarantees that can maybe be delivered by the international community. But there also needs to be a grand bargain. There needs to be somebody else needs to bring that reciprocity to the table. And there are several possibilities. One of them is a regional framework. It's true, and it's obvious there is a realignment of the interest between the moderate Arab states and Israel, which can be exploited and which can be the first steps towards the process of a normalization eventually and peace with the rest of the Arab world, which I think is something that could really move the minds of Israelis. There's also, of course, the reciprocity which can be provided by the international community including the Europeans, the Americans, and others. But reciprocity is needed, and I think that further work needs to be done on how to elicit these incentives and how to define them further. The third thing I take away is that the Big Bang theory is not realistic. Big Bang meaning that the parties sit down, negotiate, agree on a solution, and then it's implemented. This is going to take some time, and the only possibility is really some kind of gradual process. A gradual process with way stations on the way. And there are different ideas. Is it necessary, for example, to start with specifying the end game before you start on the process? Or can the end game be specified during the process? The absolutely essential point is, of course, that it's necessary to achieve a higher level of trust between the parties. And for that reason, the negotiation process will have to be, I think, gradual and will have to consist of certain way stations. In the meantime, there's a lot that can be done on the ground. I think we had an interesting panel that outlined many of the concrete measures that could be taken today to improve the lives of Palestinians in the occupied territories, in security, in energy, in water, and so on and so forth. And also to address some of the apparent injustices that are being done currently in terms of, for example, Area C, where the settler community is adding about 1,600 settlement units a year to their settlements, whereas I think on average about 5 or 6 permits are given to Palestinian construction in the area. And I mean, this has nothing to do with security and is an issue, I think, that should be and could be addressed here and now. The final point I want to make is about civil society and the role civil society can play. I think it's very clear that civil society plays a key role in showing in concrete terms that cooperation is possible across dividing lines and that reconciliation is a real possibility, and there is a prospect for some kind of a shared society and even to live peacefully next to one another. I think Women Waging Peace are trying to show that way, and there are other organizations that are obviously trying to do the same thing. But I also think it's clear that peace cannot just come from below. A lot of the fear, a lot of the anxieties will need to be addressed through civil society intervention. But still, there is a necessity to ensure that the political level is also taking the necessary action and is also supporting the necessary narrative. A narrative which is dominated by securitization of all issues and of depicting the surroundings as being very dangerous and immutable to change, I think is not going to help bring about that mindset change which is necessary in order to move forward. So I think it's a dialectic process between peace from the bottom up, but also peace from the top down, and the political leaders on both sides have a real strong and urgent responsibility, I think, to lead that process forward. Thanks.